Hi there, folks. Welcome to the Midnite Show. This is Tony, and I am back from Pennsylvania. In case you hadn't realised, this is now the second show recording back in New Zealand. And today with me, I have Lynette Zang. And Lynette, it's great to have you back. It's been the first time for a while.
It has been. It's good to see you, my friend.
You too. And obviously, it's pretty turbulent times. There's an awful lot going on at the moment, and I'm sure we won't run out of angles to talk on. Before we start, can you just tell people where they find you online?
Oh, absolutely. Keeping in mind that I've studied currency life cycle since 1987 on YouTube and Twitter at the Lynette Zang, on Instagram and Facebook at Lynette Zang. And of course, our website is LynetteZang.com. So we're pretty easy to find.
All right. So I'm sure you'll have other angles that you want to talk about, but I've just got a few questions to ask you that I'm interested in. Like, to start off, what's going on in the world of digital currencies, CBDCs, and so forth?
Well, I'm not as at the moment. I think that the stablecoin bill is about to be signed into law. And what I think very few, if any, Americans actually realize that this actually changes the fiat money system as soon as that's signed into law. And even though in this country, everybody's up in arms about the CBDCs, I really do think that it's a Trojan horse to introduce it. But the stablecoin bill is really also very, very much about recreating an artificial market for dollars and for dollar-denominated debt like treasuries. Because those that used to be buyers and holders, like foreign governments, particularly China and Japan, but they have been not buying as much and liquidating or allowing their holdings to roll off since 2013. So that's not new. And with all the chaos around the world, and particularly in the tariffs, a lot of alliances are shifting. So in the digital currency arena, President Trump is absolutely committed for the U.S. to be the center of cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, and all of that. That's what makes having gold and silver physical in your possession so much more important. But I think anybody that's watching needs to understand that as soon as a stablecoin bill is signed, that everything has changed, whether you realize it or you don't realize it. This is the first piece of legislation to legalize digital programmable fiat money. And it's a game changer. And, I'm not happy about it, but there's nothing I can do other than execute a sound money strategy and hold the lion's share of my wealth in physical gold and physical silver, which are sound money and above all central banks and above all governments. And then, frankly, things don't just shift really easy, but gold and silver are a very safe place because, when one currency goes away, another one is born. But what gold and silver do, they're the bridge that holds your purchasing power intact and also enables you to take advantage of opportunities that always present during these transitions. But I don't believe that this is going to be an easy transition at all.
Now, yeah, that's turbulent times, and obviously gold and silver prices have been increasing, particularly silver recently. It's been the highest it's been for quite a number of years. And I guess it will continue to move in that direction, maybe one step back and two steps forward and so on. But what about people that are still having faith in cryptocurrencies and so on? How is that going to be affected by these changes with digital currencies?
Well, quite honestly, it should be pretty apparent to everybody that they are being promoted and pushed for adoption.
Yeah.
And they've gotten enough adoption to push this through. So now with the stablecoin bill and how that's going to infiltrate everything that we do, that will even further the adoption. Having said that, when you ask me what believers should do, well, if all you have is all your wealth in intangible, whatever, whether they're cryptocurrencies or stocks or mutual funds or any of that stuff, you do not have a properly diversified portfolio. So, in order to do that, along with your intangibles, you got to have your tangibles. And I would like to point something out here, Tony, because I think this is so significant. This is a image of a Bitcoin, because of course, what really is a Bitcoin or a XRP or an Ethereum, but they are all intangible. So they have to create the physical image of it. And doesn't it look a whole lot like 1 ounce of gold?
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a reason, right? There's a big reason. They want you to think that this is just like this, but it absolutely is not. And the other thing, since you brought it up, when you're looking at valuations, how do you value this stuff? I mean, why is Bitcoin worth $122,000 a coin, right? It was only born in 2009. This is all about getting the adoption. But quite honestly, it's a Trojan horse. It's an absolute Trojan horse. So if you're going to do it, do whatever you're comfortable with. I can't tell you what to do or not, other than saying, make sure that you are properly diversified, because this stuff, and especially the stable coins, those are all about dollars. And the real trend that we're dealing with here is the purchasing power of the dollar. So if this stuff can only be converted into dollars, you better be looking at what the real trend in the dollar is. And it's going to zero. According to the Federal Reserve, it's going to zero. And it's not far from that right now.
So obviously, how much control are they going to have over cryptocurrencies? I mean, the control is the governments and so on. People think they're going to be independent. The second thing is, I can't remember which state I saw it, but one of the states is looking at possibly having a bill going through that would tax the purchase of gold and silver, so to discourage people from buying it. I don't know whether you know much about that.
Well, actually, on the federal level, the taxes are very, very steep, 28%. So taxes are already in there to discourage it. I'm actually sitting on the advisory board of the Sound Money movement, Citizens for Sound Money. And so we're working really hard in getting, on a state by state basis at this moment, gold and silver legalized. And when the states, there's 11 states that have done it so far, yeah, then they remove that taxable event from the gold and silver. And in fact, Missouri just passed their Sound Money bill that encourages, or actually at least enables, you to pay your taxes, your property taxes and other state due taxes with gold and silver. So that's actually pretty darn huge. And this is really a global movement, Tony, because it's not just a problem that we're having here in the US. This is a global movement. It's why I keep going back to Australia, and why I need to come and visit you if you're in New Zealand the next time I'm in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that sounds good. Obviously, I've been back and forward a bit to the US, so having just come back again. So now, when you are looking at purchasing gold and silver, assuming we're talking about wanting it in your hand, if you don't have it, if you can't touch it, it's not yours. Are you still suggesting that people buy collectibles or bullion? Like, you know,
Look, everybody's got to do whatever it is that they are comfortable doing, regardless of what anybody says. But personally, I was about the collectibles before because I want to be in the classification of those that write the laws, or at the minimum have the ability to influence those that write the laws. Because we are witnessing right now a confiscation of our work and wealth, and we have since the day we were born. And that was the plan since 1913. And I still find it really hard to believe, when they're already doing it anyway, that they're going to stop right at the end and go, oh yeah, we've gotten enough of your wealth. You can keep the rest of it. No. So yeah, I very much promote it. So for those that are, because at Zang Enterprises, we certainly sell bullion as well. So if you are bent on that, if that's what you want to do, then you properly diversify with this, because I'm always wanting to be in a position. What if I'm right? And what if I'm wrong? And if I can do something to make sure that it really doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong, then rock and roll hoochie coo, I don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so there'll be a lot of people that are going, oh, we can't hardly afford to live day to day. We can't afford to buy precious metals. What would you say to those people?
I would absolutely say that a few things. Number one, gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So like I always sit with this sterling silver flatware on my desk. You might have more gold and silver than you realize, even in jewelry form. It's why I wear the jewelry that I do. So that's one thing to absolutely keep in mind. But I would also say, and I discovered this in 2023, really, when I was in Australia, and I threw away what I had prepared for the events, and I just talked about community. So I cannot stress the importance of local community enough, because you must create surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is mostly silver, but understand any skills that you have or anything that is physical is barterable. Wealth preservation, which for me is this tried and true, 5,000 years of experience. Community, arguably the single most important thing that I talk about, and shelter. So there's strength in numbers, and in a community, everybody brings what they have, their skill sets, or more than that. And we can come together to provide surety in all of those assets, and have the ability, when the government or the central banks say jump, to say no. If you don't have that, you're going to have to say how high, and you're going to lose all of your freedoms and all of your rights. That's where we're going. We are going to a programmable money that is controlled by a centralized entity with a smart contract layer on top. And it all falls into the WEF, World Economic Forum's idea that by 2030, you will own nothing. But I'm pretty sure you won't be happy. We need to stop that. And that takes us into the global community, which is you and me and what we're doing here. Because if enough people, I think we can if we get 3% of the global population to convert into gold and silver, we've got a shot at having a voice in the new monetary system. And as crazy as that may sound, one person, what can you do? Nothing. But together, there are way more of us than there are of them. And I can't guarantee any outcome, other than if I don't do it, for sure, nothing's going to happen. And so I kind of have been challenging a lot of people to look in the mirror and say, if not me, who? And if not now, when? We have to come together and take our power back. And the only way that we get our power back is by getting redeemable gold back in the monetary system, so that if you, the public, do not like what the government or the central bankers are doing, either one, you can actually pull the gold out of the system and create restrictions around what they can do. That's what we had before 1933. That's what we have to get back to.
It's interesting you mentioned jewelry in that, because that is something that people can, sometimes you can find in thrift shops, Goodwill, opportunity shops, junk shops, garage sales, people with sterling silver rings and different things like that going really cheap. And it's spoons and knives and forks and so on. Just you want to check they're sterling silver and not plated, but that is a good option for people that don't have a lot of money and want to collect a bit of silver anyway.
It's a fabulous option. And, keep in mind too, pre-1965 US coins, and I don't know what they are, but I know you've got to have them in New Zealand.
Yeah, 64 it was. No, sorry, 46. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those are in the US, they're 90% silver.
Yeah.
What about the new ones? 0. Right?
Yeah.
So there's all different. You know what our minimum is at Zang Enterprises? $1 silver dollar. Why? Because we want everybody to be able to own silver.
Yeah. It's interesting how much it's gone up, though. In New Zealand now, when I was started out, it's now pretty much triple the price that it was back then to buy it. So it's only going to increase too, I think.
Well, it is, because one of the things that is hard for people to wrap their brain around is the intrinsic value, which is the market value, which is what you're referring to, versus the fundamental value, which is the value at which it was created to perform, the most important value that it was created to perform, and then how history has actually valued that performance. And so, taking you into a little bit of a wayback machine, right? This was the original money, and so is this, right? And it had 4 functions. It was a tool of exchange, so you can price your goods and services. A tool of barter, so if you give me this, I'll give you that. A tool, a short-term store of value, so that you are fairly paid for your labor, and a long-term store of value, so that no matter when you use that money, you are always fairly paid for the labor that generated it. With this stuff, that took out one, right? That took out one of those functions, because everybody now knows the longer you hold this, the less purchasing power value it has. So that's gone. Once we go to the digital age, then you forget, we're going to only have 2 functions, which is just a mechanism for pricing and a tool of barter. That short-term store of value will also be gone, because listening to the IMF, International Monetary Fund, so that's every Treasury Secretary and every central bank chief, what they say is that they will guarantee no inflation. No, because they're going to be attacking your principal, right? There'll be deflation. But that means that when your paycheck gets deposited into your account in a negative rate environment, you're immediately going to see that loss of principal. And then what are you most likely to do? Go out and spend it on anything that you think might hold its value better, which is exactly what happens during hyperinflation.
So just looking at the situation as it's going with Donald Trump's Build Back Better, I mean, big, beautiful bill. And what is it? How many trillions of dollars that's supposed to add? And a lot of that's going into AI and surveillance, and people don't realize that, how much of that is going into it, which is going to help facilitate their control system with all of the things you're just mentioning. But aside from that, it's adding more money to the US debt. So how far away are we from some sort of a collapse?
Quite honestly, I don't think we're very far away. And what I'm looking at to determine when that's going to happen is confidence, right? Because it's a con game. And so in any con game, you have to keep getting new money in. All right, that big, beautiful bill, that'll print a whole bunch of this, won't it?
Yeah.
And that means that this gets even further devalued, and you have to have people's confidence. And so something that the government and the central bankers track all the time is consumer confidence and inflation expectations. So that's confidence and expectations. But the consumer confidence is near an all-time low. And that creates a support level, which when that support level is broken, then it drops quite precipitously. And I think that will determine game over.
Well, because then you've got the tariffs as well, that's like a constantly shifting thing.
Well, it's more than that. And there are some hopes around tariffs that I have, right? What it is it's another unnecessary tax on the public. And so I felt like we would see faster inflation by June, and the report that just came out actually shows the faster inflation. But it's that rapid inflation that has a big impact on confidence. So, the tariff it's another tax. And where I had some level of hope, and I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but there were merchants. Amazon was one, but then they backed off pretty quick, thanks to President Trump. But there are merchants that are talking about putting that in a line item. So when you go and you buy whatever that product is, the tariff tax is pulled out. And so if enough merchants do that, or it catches on, so people start to see it, then perhaps they will start to realize that this tax isn't really necessary. And that might actually even lead them to realize that the inflation tax that we are forced to pay because of this stuff is also not necessary. So there you go. That's the confidence. And then if we can build that global community, there's our shot. And I will say this about President Trump. His job is as a disruptor and to take us into this next system. But in order to finalize that, I know that crypto advocates think that it's just going to be, we're just going to shift from here to here, ho-hum, no big deal. But that's not the way that it works. Because when I looked at, and I believe I may have my answer, I've been looking for this for actually many, many years. When I've been looking at, what will justify money creation in the current system? It's debt. And so all of that new debt that they're taking on creates all of that new money. And that was a possibility. So they have to hyperinflate that debt away in order to go into the new system. They have to. There's no other option. But also the other part of that is, again, gold and silver is that bridge. And when people lose confidence in the money, they lose confidence in those that are in power. So I feel like we're in a Stephen King novel where we've got the end game right here. And there's all these things that are happening all around here, including the sound money movement. And who's going to get there first? Right? Who's going to be able to make a difference? And I think we, the people, are. I mean, that's what I'm fighting for. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but I know if I don't try, then for sure they lose my voice. And I want my voice to be big on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. So have you got any other things that you think are important at the moment that we know about?
Well, that we know about. I mean, you look at what's happening in the derivatives market, because that's the one that I think will ultimately take everything down and create that crisis. And the level of trading and derivatives is higher than it's ever been. It almost took down the global system in 98 with long-term capital management. They didn't fix anything. They just made it riskier leading up to 2008. That crisis, the deregulation that has actually been going on since they instituted, or no, they didn't institute, since they legalized the Dodd-Frank Act that was supposed to take away that risky proprietary trading, which you can go into the office of the comptroller of the currency. And it's worse now than it was prior to 2008, the level of debt and leverage inside of the system. And the deregulation that's going on in the banking system in this country. I mean, the level of risk is rising. The level of risk transfer is also rising. And when are you going to get out of the way? Because most people don't. They never get out of the way, and they procrastinate, and they always think that there's time, or maybe this time's different, blah, 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 blah. I say get to safety and do it as quickly as you can. Just get done and create those communities. Create them. Go out. Go to a farmer's market, go to a farm that's producing food, give them your time, volunteer. I cannot encourage this more strongly. You have to become your own central banker, and you have to develop a community that has all these different parts and pieces to it, so that when the government or the central bank say jump, you don't have to go how high. They can't surveil this. They can't surveil this. They can surveil all the rest of this stuff. And anybody that thinks that it's out of the system, good luck to you, as my mom would say.
Yeah. So one more thing I was thinking on here is the central banks. I know some of them are rapidly trying to accumulate gold.
Oh, yes.
But we back earlier in the year, you heard Trump and Musk saying, they were going to go into Fort Knox and audit it. And that went completely quiet, nothing more.
Silent.
Exactly. So there's something suspicious about that too. And so where does the US stand in this with other central banks?
Quite honestly, a lot of people have been asking that question. Why did it go dead silent? And you hear nothing about it anymore. Yeah. That raises a red flag. But it's not surprising to me, because it's never been audited, right? So how easy, maybe it's not there, maybe a big chunk of it isn't there. I mean, who knows? Because even if it is there, even if it was there, I would like to see the audit trail, who actually legally owns it. So there could be a bunch of possibilities, but you bring up such a valid point, which is the global central banks buying more gold than they ever have in history over the last, now into the fourth year, though they started shifting between net selling and net buying. Oh, they started that in 2005, 3 years before the great financial crisis that became obvious to the public in 2008. When do you want to get prepared?
Yeah, well, this is it. It's obvious that they wouldn't be buying it if they weren't using it, or weren't thinking they were going to use that as some part of a base of the new system. And also to protect their independence.
I mean, here in the U.S. is really fascinating and makes sense at the same time, because when President Nixon took the U.S. and ultimately the world off of the gold system, basically the central bank chief, Burns, was in his pocket. So it was not an independent Fed. at that time. And of course, we were inflating lots of things away, and there's a whole story behind that. But President Trump has been very vocal about wanting to get rid of Jay Powell. And there was even, it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. He only has a certain amount of time left in his term, but President Trump wants lower interest rates. What does that mean? That means that he wants more money printing and he wants more inflation. So in other words, what that really means, the real honest interpretation is the dollar is overvalued, even though it only has 3 cents left officially. The dollar is overvalued and we want it to lose a lot more value, which benefits asset prices, right? Because the more of this stuff that it takes to buy the same goods and services, it makes it look like the GDP that the country's doing better. But in this country too, unfortunately, you have a lot of people that are having to break up their groceries in 4 easy payments. That means people cannot afford to feed their families, and that's going to get a whole lot worse. And that goes back to the confidence thing. That's why I don't think, I don't know, maybe they can postpone this longer. We'll see, but I don't think so. I think we're getting close.
Well, I definitely notice each time I go to the US, it's how much worse it is,
Would have perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I go in and out and it's like, oh my gosh, the prices of things are more and people have less spending money and it's just pretty obvious. I mean, New Zealand's not doing great either, let's be honest, but
no places.
No.
This is a global issue.
Yeah.
That's why. Look, do I think that it sounds crazy for me to sit here and say that I want to have a positive impact for the world by changing the global monetary system? When I hear that out of my mouth, it sounds crazy to me because I am just one little person. There's really nothing any different from me than anybody else, except that I agree to show up and do the work. That's the difference, and that's what I'm encouraging everybody to do. Show up and do the work, make a positive difference for our children and our children's children and our children's children's children, right? We've got to do this for the world or what they have. I'll just say I'm glad I'm old.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it'd be tough being someone like a little kid or something now with everything that's going on. Anyway, so I guess we'll leave it at that. Can you just once more tell people where they find you online again?
Absolutely. I am very, very prolific on YouTube and also on Twitter at the Lynette Zang, Instagram and Facebook at Lynette Zang, and on our website, LynetteZang.com. And of course, if you live in the US or maybe anywhere in the world, I'm not really sure about that one, but you could actually even call us at 833-GLD-ZANG.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion again, and I guess we'll have to watch this space as to what happens in the near future because it's a change a minute these days.
It is constant like this. And that's becoming more normal. So the markets don't care about it anymore. The people don't care about That's the way they do it. They just make it kind of normal and nobody pays attention. You need to pay attention.
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much for being on again, Lynette, and we must do it again sometime.
I hope so, Tony. I'll see you soon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And also, folks, please make sure you subscribe to us at aminutetomidnight.com. If you haven't already done so, go down the right-hand side of the website where you see enter email to subscribe to the blog. That's where you do it. And also, we do run A Minute to Midnight 100% by donations. I'm not taking finances from anything else, not selling anything, just 100% by donations. If anyone wants to help us through donating, that's always much appreciated. And you can do that at aminutemidnight.com. And the music used in the show, I've written, played, and recorded. So God bless, God willing, we'll be back with another episode in a few days' time.